We're back now, and we'd like to find out a little bit more about the 8 kinds of vampires, the 9 kinds of vampires. Who knows how many kinds of vampires there really are. I understand as a Eris Discordian that all things happen in 5s. I guess we'll find out now how it works with vampires.
It tends to be about 7 or 8 different types of vampires that I've come across. Other people have done some categorizations of. This hasn't all been through my research or anything like that, but it's been brought to my awareness through my involvement with the community at this point. You have people who are clinical nature.
People who need to drink blood.
Need to drink blood, who have clinical blood feeding requirements. You just have blood drinkers, who are people that consider they're considered vampiric and they drink blood. They don't necessarily have a physical or need to consume blood. We like to call it a blood feeder. But the blood drinker is someone who consumes blood for any of various few other reasons. Mm-hmm. Keeping in mind that any of the other vampire types that we be mentioning could also consume blood either as a need or a feeder.
Okay.
A drinker or a feeder. It could be a component of of what else they do, and then after that it comes to be like other practices that they could be taking of. There are blood fetishists who are they're the BDSM community type, who are not vampires, but are often confused with vampires or vampiric blood drinkers because they do either bloodlet or blood play, which is just for cutting, for the pain, and for the erotic turn on of extracting blood from their from the person that they're doing a scene with, like the SM scene. So they're just blood fetishists.
Okay, so they're not really vampires.
They're not really. Some of them consider themselves vampires, or they call themselves vampires, but the majority of the vampire community does not consider them vampires.
And they usually don't call themselves vampires.
They usually don't. They usually, they're just blood fetishists.
BDSM.
Just BDSM blood fetishists who revel in the drawing and extraction of blood and using it in play, getting involved in like the letting of blood. Mm-hmm. But they don't necessarily consume it, and some that do also have no illusions that what they're doing is anything of a vampiric nature.
Okay.
They still their main involvement with it is very, that is a sexual.
Raphael, I must stop you.
Hmm?
Illusions.
Mm-hmm. Illusions.
Is this a illusion?
An
That's
allusion.
what you do, an illusion? Okay.
That that they are vampires.
Okay.
An illusion, not illusion.
Okay. All right. Okay.
They don't allude to saying that they're vampires or not that. They're simply blood fetishists. They may drink some blood once in a while from whatever isn't for any sexual involvement, sexual erotic turn on. Mm-hmm. But they don't consider it vampiric. They don't consider anything to do with any traditional folklorist or modern day vampirism. It's something which they consider entirely separate and different in the BDSM community. Some erroneously sometimes may consider they may think what they're doing is vampiric, but by many others it's considered not. They're just mislabeling it, or taking the shortcut path to like stating what it is that they do, is that labeling. It's all about labeling that. Then you have the psychic vampires, and like I said, there's
Let's see, that makes 4.
It makes 4.
Blood drinkers, blood feeder, blood drinkers, blood letters, who aren't really vampires.
Right, blood fetishists.
Blood fetishists. Now we're up to the next one.
Right. You have your psychic vampires, which,
yes.
as I said,
we talked about this earlier.
Right. They fall into a few categories, subcategories. There's the intentional and the unintentional.
Oh, okay.
And within the intentional, there tends to be like the good and the dark, what types of energy they feed off of, which is just another subcategorization, but of psychic vampire, of what type it's motivation is the factor there, not necessarily type.
Okay.
And you have lifestylers who choose to revel in the aesthetic.
Is that what you are?
Primarily, mostly, a lifestyler.
Okay.
These people who choose to partake of the aesthetic, dress in the aesthetic garb, wear fangs, wear false fangs, and things like that. Contact lenses, makeup.
Fangs look great.
Go to parties.
I can't get over it. I mean, they look great.